She doesn't need to sit with us. The kitchen will be warmer for her anyway. Those words, delivered by my mother with a dismissive wave of her manicured hand, still echo in my mind like a gunshot. I watched my grandmother Margaret's weathered face crumple for just a fraction of a second before she smoothed it into that familiar, resigned smile. The smile that said she'd spent a lifetime swallowing hurts too big to name. I was 20 years old, home from college for Christmas break, standing frozen in the doorway between our gleaming living room and the kitchen where Grandma sat alone on a wooden stool, her arthritic hands wrapped around a chipped mug of lukewarm coffee. Through the archway, I could see everyone else: Mom, Dad, my older brother Trevor, and his wife Jessica, their two kids running around the professionally decorated Christmas tree that probably cost more than Grandma's monthly Social Security check. And there was Grandma, 86 years old, wearing the same navy cardigan she'd owned for a decade, sitting in our kitchen like an inconvenient piece of furniture we'd temporarily displaced. "Mom, that's not—" I started, but my mother cut me off with that look. The one that said, "Don't you dare embarrass me in front of everyone. If you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're from in the comments." Because what I discovered after that Christmas dinner changed everything I thought I knew about my family and about the grandmother who raised me. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how we got here. My name is Phoebe Morrison, and for the first 8 years of my life, I lived with my grandmother Margaret in her small two-bedroom house in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My parents, both corporate lawyers pulling 80-hour work weeks, had essentially outsourced their parenting duties to her. Grandma picked me up from school, helped me with homework, taught me to bake her famous snickerdoodles, sat through every school play and soccer game my parents were too busy to attend. She lived on a modest pension from her late husband's factory job and her Social Security benefits, but somehow she always made magic happen. Birthday cakes from scratch, hand-sewn Halloween costumes, a college fund she'd been contributing to since I was born, $25 every single month, even when it meant she ate ramen for dinner. When I turned 8, my parents' careers finally stabilized. They bought a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs, enrolled me in private school, and suddenly decided they were ready to be full-time parents. Grandma was thanked for her service, essentially, sent back to her little house with a fruit basket and the promise that we'll visit often. We didn't visit often. Over the next 12 years, I watched my parents' relationship with Grandma deteriorate from benign neglect into something uglier. They'd roll their eyes when she called, make excuses when she invited us to Sunday dinner. My mother would complain about Grandma's old person smell and her outdated furniture, about how embarrassing it was that she still used coupons and shopped at Goodwill. "Your grandmother never had any ambition," Mom would say, sipping her third glass of Pinot Grigio. "That's why she's always struggled financially." The truth was different. The truth was that Grandma had put my grandfather through night school while raising 3 kids and working 2 jobs. She'd paid for my uncle's rehab 3 times. She'd given my parents the down payment for their first apartment. She'd sacrificed her entire life for a family that now treated her like a burden. But I was young and complicit in my silence. I loved Grandma desperately, but I was also ashamed of how my friends might judge her thrift store clothes and her flip phone. I didn't defend her the way I should have. That guilt still keeps me up at night. That Christmas Eve started badly and got worse. Grandma had called 3 days earlier. I'd overheard Mom on the phone in the kitchen. "Mother, we're having a small, intimate gathering this year. Just immediate family. Well, technically you're invited, but don't feel obligated if it's too much trouble to drive." "Okay, fine. Come around 4. The way Mom said fine made it sound like Grandma had imposed herself on our celebration rather than been invited to her own son's house. Grandma arrived at 3:30 p.m., early, as always, not wanting to be a burden, carrying a worn canvas tote bag filled with gifts. I met her at the door and hugged her tight, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender soap and peppermint candies. "Hi, Sweet Pea," she whispered into my hair. "I've missed you." "I've missed you too, Grandma," I'm sorry I haven't called more. School's been. Hush now. You're busy living your life. That's exactly what you should be doing. She pulled back and studied my face with those sharp blue eyes that never missed anything. You look tired, though. Are you eating enough? Before I could answer, my mother appeared in the foyer, lips pressed into a thin line. Margaret, you're early. I wanted to help set up. Everything's already done, thanks. Professional caterers. Mom's tone made it crystal clear that Grandma's offers of help had always been inadequate. Why don't you... Actually, the living room's pretty crowded right now with all the kids and the catering set up. Would you mind hanging out in the kitchen for a bit? It's warmer in there anyway, closer to the oven. The kitchen, not the living room with the gas fireplace and the expensive sectional sofa. The kitchen, where the help would normally wait. I saw Grandma's throat work as she swallowed. Of course, whatever's easiest. Phoebe, take your grandmother's coat. And Margaret, I hope you didn't bring any of those cookies you usually make. We have a very specific dessert menu planned. Grandma's face fell. In her tote bag, I knew, were 3 tins of her famous snickerdoodles, the ones she'd been making for our family for 40 years. No, of course not, Grandma lied smoothly. I wouldn't dream of it. For the next 3 hours, I watched my grandmother sit alone in our kitchen while the rest of us celebrated in the living room. Every time I tried to keep her company, someone pulled me away. Trevor wanted me to take photos. Jessica needed help with the kids. Dad wanted to show me something on his new iPad. Through the archway, I could see Grandma sitting on that stool, nibbling on a piece of dry turkey someone had given her on a paper plate, while the rest of us ate off Mom's wedding china. She wasn't even at the kitchen table. There were grocery bags and mail piled on it. Just the stool by the counter, like a servant waiting to be summoned. My brother Trevor actually said to his wife, loud enough for Grandma to hear, I don't know why she even bothered coming. It's not like she has anything to contribute to the conversation. What's she gonna talk about, her soap operas and early bird specials? Jessica laughed, actually laughed. I felt something crack inside my chest. At one point, I slipped into the kitchen with a plate of hors d'oeuvres. Grandma, come sit with us, please. There's room on the couch. She shook her head gently. Your mother has her reasons, Sweet Pea. The living room is crowded, and my old bones do better in warm places. I'm fine here, really. But her eyes were wet, reflecting the harsh overhead fluorescent lights. This isn't right, I whispered. Phoebe! Mom's voice sharp. We're opening presents. Come on. Grandma squeezed my hand. Go. Be with your family. The phrase hung in the air between us. Your family. As if she wasn't part of it anymore. Around 8 p.m., people started leaving. Trevor and Jessica bundled up their kids, kissing Mom and Dad goodbye, not even poking their heads into the kitchen to thank Grandma for the presents she'd brought for her great-grandchildren. Dad retreated to his study with a glass of scotch and a legal brief. Mom started directing the caterer's cleanup with military precision. I found Grandma in the kitchen, washing dishes that the caterers were literally paid to wash. Grandma, stop. You don't have to do that. I know, but I like to be useful. She smiled at me, but it was the saddest smile I'd ever seen. I'm going to head out soon, Sweet Pea. It's a long drive back to Scranton. It's already dark. Stay the night. We have a guest room. That's your brother's old room, and your mother has it set up as her home office now. I wouldn't want to inconvenience anyone. She dried her hands carefully on a dish towel. Besides, I have something I need to do at home. Something in her voice made me look at her more closely. There was a strange peace in her expression, a kind of settled resignation that scared me. Grandma? She cupped my face in her damp hands. Phoebe Morrison, you are the light of my life. Do you know that? Everything good I've ever done, every sacrifice I've ever made, it was worth it because of you. Grandma, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. I just want you to know how proud I am of you, how much I love you, and how important it is that you never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve a seat at the table. Do you understand me? Tears were running down my face. I love you too. I know you do, baby. She kissed my forehead. That's the only thing that's kept me warm all these years. She left quietly, gathering her tote bag, still full of the unwanted cookies, and slipping out the back door. I helped her to her old Honda Civic, watching as she drove away into the snowy December night, her taillights disappearing around the corner. I should have run after her. I should have insisted she stay, should have made a scene, should have done something other than watch her leave. But I was 20 and tired, and still too much of a coward to stand up to my parents. I went up to my room, exhausted by the tension and the guilt, and fell into a fitful sleep. Christmas morning dawned bright and cold. I woke to the sound of my mother screaming. I ran downstairs in my pajamas to find Mom standing by the Christmas tree, a white envelope in her shaking hands. Dad was reading over her shoulder, his face drained of color. Trevor had just arrived with his family for Christmas brunch, and they stood frozen in the doorway. "What's wrong?" I asked. Mom looked at me with wild eyes. "Your grandmother. There's a letter." My heart stopped. "What kind of letter?" Dad cleared his throat roughly. "It's addressed to all of us. For my family, Merry Christmas." He read it aloud, and with every word, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. My dearest family. By the time you read this, I'll be somewhere warm, in more ways than one. Don't worry, I'm not dead, though knowing your mother, Richard, she's probably already worried about how my death might affect her book club schedule. I'm very much alive, just relocating. I've spent a lot of time in kitchens over the years, cooking for you, cleaning for you, sitting alone while you celebrated in the next room. I've come to understand something important. A kitchen is where you prepare nourishment for people you love. But when you're not allowed to share the meal, you're not family, you're staff. I'm writing to tell you that I've made some changes. Some time ago, I met with my attorney. Yes, even old ladies have attorneys. Funny how that works. And made arrangements for my estate. The house in Scranton that my beloved husband and I paid off over 30 years. I've sold it. The proceeds, along with my life savings and my late husband's pension fund, altogether about $340,000, have been distributed as follows. $200,000 has been placed in a trust fund for Phoebe, to be managed by my attorney until she turns 25. The conditions are simple. She must use it for her education, her first home, or starting a business, anything that builds her own life. She cannot give it to you, Richard and Susan, not a penny. The remaining $140,000 has been donated to the Scranton Community Shelter, where I've been volunteering for the past 3 years. Those people, homeless, forgotten, struggling, they always made room for me at their table. They remembered my name. They asked about my day. They treated me with more dignity than my own family has shown me in a decade. I've also moved into a wonderful senior living community here in Scranton. It's modest but warm. My new friends here have already invited me to their New Year's Eve party. I'll be sitting at the table with them, not in the kitchen. Richard, my son, I loved you from the moment you were born. I sacrificed my dreams so you could achieve yours. But somewhere along the way, you learned to measure worth in dollar signs and square footage. You married a woman who values appearances over people. I hope someday you remember who you used to be. Susan, you're not a bad person. You're just empty. I hope you fill that emptiness with something real before it consumes you. Trevor, you learned cruelty from your parents, and that breaks my heart. Your children deserve better. Be better. Phoebe, my darling girl, you already know how much I love you. The money is not a reward or a burden. It's my way of giving you the foundation I never had. Build something beautiful with your life. And remember, family isn't who you're related to. Family is who shows up, who makes room, who remembers that you matter. I finally found a place where there's always room at the table. I hope someday you find yours, too. With love and liberation, Margaret Ann Morrison. P.S. Phoebe, there are 3 tins of snickerdoodles in my freezer with your name on them. The key to my apartment is with my attorney. Come visit any time. I'll put the kettle on. The silence after Dad finished reading was deafening. Then Mom started screaming. $340,000? Where did she get $340,000. That money should be ours. We're her family. We're her blood. That was Dad's pension, my father said numbly. His life insurance, my inheritance. She gave it away? To a homeless shelter and a trust fund? Mom whirled on me. This is your fault. You manipulated her. You poisoned her against us. I didn't know, I whispered. I swear, I didn't know anything about this. Bullshit. You were always her favorite, always whispering in her ear. Susan, stop! Dad's voice cracked like a whip. He sank into the armchair, the letter still in his hands, and I watched my father, the powerful attorney who never showed weakness, start to cry. Oh my God, he said. What have we done? Trevor stood pale and silent, his wife clutching his arm. Their kids, sensing the adult panic, had started to whimper. I snatched the letter from Dad's limp hands and read it again myself, tears streaming down my face. But unlike their tears of rage and loss, mine were tears of grief and something else. Pride. My grandmother had freed herself. The next few weeks were chaos. Mom tried to contest the will, but Grandma's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, informed us that everything was completely legal and ironclad. The trust for me was unbreakable. The donation to the shelter was already complete. Mrs. Morrison was entirely of sound mind when she made these arrangements, Patricia told my parents coldly during their consultation. In fact, she was more lucid and determined than most clients I see. She knew exactly what she was doing. My parents tried to pressure me to give them their share of my trust fund. When I refused, remembering Grandma's specific instructions, they threatened to cut me off, to stop paying my college tuition. That's when Patricia stepped in again. Turns out Grandma had anticipated this too. The trust included a provision for my educational expenses, protected from my parents' interference. Your grandmother thought of everything, Patricia said with a small smile. She was a remarkably smart woman. I drove to Scranton 3 days after Christmas. Grandma's new apartment was in a modest but clean senior living facility with cheerful yellow walls and staff who greeted residents by name. I found her door, 2B, and knocked softly. She opened it wearing a bright red sweater I'd never seen before, her hair freshly styled, her eyes clear and bright. Phoebe, she breathed, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like home. We sat in her small living room. She had a real living room now, not just a kitchen stool, and drank tea while she told me about her new life. The book club, the water aerobics class, her friend Dorothy, who had the most outrageous stories about her time as a Vegas showgirl in the 60s. Are you happy? I asked. I'm free, she said, which turns out to be the same thing. Mom and Dad are furious. I know. They'll get over it, or they won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. She squeezed my hand. I spent 50 years trying to earn their love and respect. I finally realized you can't earn what someone isn't willing to give. All I was doing was making myself smaller and smaller, trying to fit into the tiny space they'd allotted me. I should have said something. That night I should have... No, baby, this wasn't your burden to carry. You were a child when this pattern started, and you're barely an adult now. The failure was theirs, your parents, mine for tolerating it. We taught you that this was normal, that love meant accepting crumbs. But I knew it was wrong. And now you're learning to act on that knowledge. That's what growing up is. She smiled. Besides, you're here now. You came. I stayed for 6 hours. We ate snickerdoodles and watched old movies and talked about everything. My college classes, my dreams of becoming a teacher, my fear that I'd turn out like my parents. You won't, Grandma said firmly. You know the difference between right and wrong. You feel uncomfortable when people are treated poorly. Those instincts will guide you if you let them. That was 3 months ago. I'm writing this from my dorm room, where I've returned for spring semester. I visit Grandma twice a month now, and we talk on the phone every Sunday. She's thriving. actually thriving, in ways I'd never seen when she was trying to please my family. My parents and I are barely speaking. They still can't accept that they were wrong, that they pushed away someone who loved them unconditionally. Trevor sent me an angry email calling me a traitor and a manipulator. I blocked him. The truth is, I'm grieving. Not for the grandmother I lost. She's alive and happier than ever. I'm grieving for the family I thought I had, the one that turns out to have been fiction all along. I'm grieving for all those years I stayed silent, for all the times I could have sat in the kitchen with Grandma instead of enjoying my privileged place in the living room. But I'm also learning. I'm learning that family doesn't mean accepting abuse. That love isn't supposed to feel like a hierarchy where some people matter more than others. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who treat you like you're invisible. Grandma's letter ended with a line that's become my mantra. Family is who shows up, who makes room, who remembers that you matter. I've started building that family for myself. My college roommates who support me through panic attacks and late-night study sessions. My professors who see my potential and encourage me. The elderly neighbors in Grandma's building who've adopted me as an honorary granddaughter. These people, they make room for me. They remember my name, my dreams, my birthday. They treat me like I matter. They're my family now. Last week, I went to my parents' house to pick up some of my belongings. The house looked the same, immaculate, expensive, empty of warmth. Mom answered the door in her tennis whites, barely looking at me. "Make it quick," she said. "I have a lesson in 30 minutes." As I was leaving with my boxes, I paused in the kitchen, the same kitchen where Grandma had sat alone last Christmas. I thought about all the meals she'd cooked here, all the times she'd cleaned up after us, all the hours she'd spent trying to be useful enough to earn our love. Dad was there, making coffee. He looked older, tired, gray in a way that wasn't just about his hair. "She's not coming back, is she?" he said quietly. "Mom, she's really done with us." I thought about lying, about offering false hope. But Grandma had spent too many years protecting everyone else's feelings. "Would you come back?" I asked. "If you were her?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I left without saying goodbye. Here's what I want you to understand. My grandmother spent 63 years of her life sacrificing for other people. She raised children, supported husbands, paid for educations and rehabs and down payments. She showed up to every birthday party and graduation and hospital stay. She loved fiercely and asked for nothing in return. And in return, she got a stool in the kitchen. The tragedy isn't that she finally said enough. The tragedy is that it took so long. The tragedy is that my family was so blind, so entitled, so cruel, that they couldn't see what they had until it was gone. My mother keeps calling the money stolen, but you can't steal what's yours. That $340,000 was Grandma's, earned through decades of work and sacrifice. She owed us nothing, less than nothing, considering how we treated her. If you're watching this, and you have someone in your life who always sits in the kitchen while everyone else enjoys the living room, go get them right now, bring them to the table. Make room, make them matter. Because I promise you, the day will come when you look for them in the kitchen and they won't be there anymore. And no amount of money, no amount of inheritance, no amount of regret will bring back the time you wasted making them feel small. My grandmother is 86 years old, and she's finally living her best life. She goes to water aerobics on Tuesdays. She has a boyfriend, yes, a boyfriend, named Harold, who's a Vietnam vet and makes her laugh until she cries. She volunteers at the shelter 3 days a week and comes home with stories about the people she's met, the lives she's touched. She has plans, dreams, a future that belongs to her. When I visit now, we sit at her small kitchen table together, both of us, no one banished to a stool in the corner. We eat snickerdoodles and drink tea and talk about everything and nothing. She asks about my life, my hopes, my fears. She listens, she remembers. She makes me feel like I matter. That's what love is supposed to look like. Last Sunday, she said something I'll never forget. "Phoebe, I spent most of my life thinking I had to earn my place in this world. I finally realized I was born deserving a place. We all were. And anyone who makes you audition for their love isn't family. They're just people you happen to share DNA with. The Christmas I found Grandma's letter was the Christmas I lost my family. But it was also the Christmas I learned what family is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where there's always room at the table. It's supposed to be people who remember that you matter. It's supposed to be love that doesn't require you to make yourself smaller just to fit into someone else's life. I'll never forget that last image of my grandmother at our Christmas party, sitting alone in the kitchen, wearing her old navy cardigan, her arthritic hands wrapped around a chipped mug. But that's not the image I hold on to. The one I keep in my heart is this. Grandma, in her new red sweater, laughing with Dorothy about their water aerobics instructor, planning her next date with Harold, living a life that's finally, beautifully, hers. She found her place at the table. Now I'm finding mine. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you have a grandmother, a parent, a friend who's always sitting in the kitchen while everyone else celebrates, go get them. Bring them in, make room. And if you're the one in the kitchen right now, please know, you deserve better. You deserve a place at the table. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve love that makes you bigger, not smaller. You deserve warmth. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt like you were sitting in the kitchen while everyone else celebrated? How did you find your way back to the table? Because that's the real Christmas miracle. Not the money, not the revenge, not even the justice. The real miracle is realizing that you were always worthy of love. You just needed to find the right people to love you. Sometimes family is who raised you. Sometimes it's who saved you. And sometimes it's who you choose when you finally choose yourself. Merry Christmas to everyone sitting in kitchens right now. May you find your way to the table. May you find your warmth. And may you never, ever settle for less than you deserve again. P.S. Grandma wants me to tell you that she's teaching me her snickerdoodle recipe next weekend. Not because I'm inheriting it, but because she wants to share it. Because that's what real family does. They share. They include. They make room. There's always room at our table now. Always.